Hello and welcome to the Regional Community Childcare Development Fund supported professional learning. This is Phase 1, Session 3, Part A, Defining Expected Behaviours as a Care Community. And we're going to focus on consistent language for expectations. We're very grateful to the State Government's Royalties for Regions program and the Department for Communities for being able to develop and implement this professional learning program. Today is part of Phase 1, where we're focusing on supporting all children with positive behaviour. We've done trauma and brain development and how that can affect behaviour, an introduction to positive behaviour support, and now we're getting into what we actually do to implement positive behaviour support, the first of which is define our expectations for children. We'd like to acknowledge some of the resources that we've used to make this presentation and their generosity in making these freely available. The pyramid resources can be found at the Vanderbilt site, and PBIS resources can be found at pbis.org. Both of those websites are absolute treasure troves of resources, and I recommend that you check them out for the fantastic resources they have. This is the PBIS continuum. We're focusing at the moment on things that we do for all children, how we support all children to be successful with their behaviour, and how do we define what we want kids to do. How do we define to kids, this is how you get it right, this is how you be successful at our service. The starting point for positive behaviour support is that we cannot make kids learn or behave, we cannot force them to do that, but we can create environments that make it more likely kids are going to be successful. That's what we want to do, is develop our environments. Environments that work, environments that help kids to get it right, have a core curriculum, a core teaching curriculum of what are the behaviours you need to do when you're here. We've actually worked that out, defined it clearly. That's going to be the focus of the session today. To implement positive behaviour support as a starting point, every service needs clearly defined big picture expectations, then specific behaviours for different places, then routines for daily activities. Our focus first up is going to be those big picture expectations. The practice of defining behaviours for our children, where does that fit in with the early years learning framework with being, belonging and becoming? It fits in to outcome 2, children being connected and able to contribute to their world, defining the behaviours we want kids to do. We call them behaviour expectations, but you can use the language of rules if you want. That comes into helping kids to learn about belonging and the different roles and responsibilities of different people, and the idea of reciprocal rights and responsibilities. So defining behaviour expectations, we do it because it makes kids more successful, but it also fits in really nicely with the outcomes expected in the early years learning framework. A little note on terminology. Like I said, we don't love the language of rules, but it's okay to use it. We have 3 different things we need to define. Our expectations, the kind of people you want your kids to be. Things like we are kind, or be respectful, or show responsibility. Those kind of big picture expectations of how do we want kids to be as humans? How do we want to raise this next generation of citizens to be? What is important to us in our service? In order for kids to be successful at that, we then need to get more specific. Because if I say to a 3-year-old, for example, okay, I want you to show me being responsible, they may not know how to do that because that's a pretty abstract term. So we need to get from those big picture expectations of how we want kids to be, like responsible, to the specific behaviours that help kids be successful with that. So things like we scrape our plate into the chook bucket and that shows being responsible at mealtime. We also need to define the procedures or the step-by-steps of how things are done in our service in order that children can start developing some independence with those kind of procedures. But our focus for today is up here. How do we define our big picture expectations? What kind of people are you raising in your service, or do you want to raise? The kind of people, so we're defining the kind of people that we want our children to be. Why do we need these expectations? Why not just have a list of all the rules? Because having those positive service-wide behaviour expectations allows us to be consistent in our language with children. It allows us to teach them what respect and responsibility and those other terms actually mean. It allows us to be consistent in what we recognise. So, oh, thanks for being respectful, or gee, thanks for being safe. And it allows us to be consistent in what we correct. So, oh, you haven't got your sunscreen on. Remember, we need to have our sunscreen on to be safe and sun smart. That's why we put sunscreen on, because it's part of being safe. So these expectations are the cornerstone for everything else that you'll do that's related to positive behaviour support. And it's really important that every service develops theirs themselves and that every services are slightly different because they need to reflect your context, your kids, your community. So I want you to do this first activity as a group. I want you to have a chat with the person next to you about what is social and behavioural success at your service. So you can think about a child, or it can be a group of children. What do they do when they're getting it right? What do they do when they're being socially and behaviourally successful? How do they act? What are the things that they are doing that are the right things to do that demonstrate social and behavioural success? If you like drawing a picture, you can draw a picture. If you prefer writing things, you can write. I'm going to suggest that you stop this video or pause this video for about 5 minutes and let people discuss what is it that kids do that makes them successful at your service for a couple of minutes, and then share with the whole group the different things that people have that make kids socially and behaviourally successful. So press pause now and do the partner activity and the whole group share. And then when you've done that, you can press play again and keep watching. So you've had the chance to discuss what social and behavioural success is like in your context. Now we're going to have a look at some examples of some services that have defined that using positive language, 2 or 3 behaviour expectations. So this first example comes from St Mary's College in Broome, their primary campus. They have 3 expectations of their students: to be responsible, be kind, and be respectful. So all of their specific behaviour expectations, all of their rules, the reason they have them is because they're helping their kids to be more successful at being responsible, being kind, and being respectful. And everybody in that school is able to use that same language when they're teaching, when they're encouraging, and when they're correcting. This service just has 2 expectations: be a friend and be safe. So everything they expect of their kids, whether it's putting your hats on to play outside or whether it's scraping a plate into the chook bucket, the reason we do those things is because it's either being a good friend or being safe. So we have these overarching reasons for what we do. These are the kind of citizens that we want to raise, the kind of people that we want our kids to be. This service has 3: be safe, be kind, and be respectful as their behaviour expectations. This service also has 3, they're up the top here. It's be safe, be respectful, and be a team player. I really liked that they've used some different language to reflect what they want for their kids. And that's something that I would love you to do in your service, is think about what's going to be the best language that reflects what your community and what you as educators want for your kids. You don't have to use the word be if you don't like it. You can use we are safe, we are respectful, or you can just put safe and respectful and team players. You don't have to have the word be, it's just that's how they wrote it. We just have to have the expectations, and you can work out exactly what kind of language and grammar you want around those. This service has we can be safe, be kind, and be responsible as the things that were important to them. So that those are their big picture behaviour expectations. And this service has we are safe and we are respectful, and this is just an example of one of their celebration posters. They just have this up in their front office. We're all happier when we're safe and respectful. And it's just some really lovely photos of the kids looking gorgeous and happy, reinforcing that message about safe and respectful and reinforcing that language. So having those overarching behaviour expectations allows us to celebrate consistently as well. So I'd like you to do an activity now where you'll start developing the expectations for your service. It's going to be a multi-stage activity, and this is just the first part of it. The first part is to think about what you personally would like as behaviour expectations. You've seen a couple of examples, but there's lots of different ways of doing that. So the first bit of the activity is just quiet reflection time. What would you like as behaviour expectations? There's some places to write down your ideas in the handout that goes with this module. So I'd like you to write down maybe your top 3, the things that are important to you. Then I want you to get a piece of paper and write across it in big letters just one of those expectations, just your current favourite one. You can change it later if you want to, but which one is your favourite expectation? I'd like you to write it in big letters across the piece of paper, because what we'll do afterwards is we will be holding those in front of us so that other people can read them from a couple of metres away. So think about the expectations that you would like. You can put them on your handout if you want to. Then choose your top number 1 and write it in big letters across a piece of paper. It can be scrap paper. And wait until everybody's had the opportunity to do that. So I'd like you to press pause on this video for 2 or 3 minutes until everybody's completed this task, and then you can hit play again and we'll go on to the next part of the activity. Okay, the second part of the activity about making behaviour expectations, part 2, is a clumping activity. So everyone should have their favourite behaviour expectation, their current favourite, written on a piece of paper in large lettering. I want you to hold that in front of you so that other people can read it and move around the room. I want you to find people with an expectation that is different to yours. So if you have "we are safe," I want you to find someone who's got something different. Maybe they've got "be respectful." And I want you to just both have a chat about why did you choose that one? What do you reckon is important about that? How does that help kids be successful? You're not married to your expectation. You can change it if you want to. The purpose of this activity is to give you the opportunity to hear lots of other people's voices about why they think that expectation is important. There's no one wrong or right answer, but I want you to move around the room until you've talked to as many different people as you can about why they've chosen their expectation and what they think. So I'd like you to press pause on the video shortly and do this activity. It should take you 10 to 15 minutes to go around the room and let everybody talk to as many people as they can. The purpose is just to hear what other people think and share thoughts. So press pause now and go around the room and talk to other people. Okay, so you should have a number of different expectations and you're hoping to choose 2 or 3 for your service. So there's a number of different ways you could do this. What I would suggest is you write a list of all of the ones that staff have chosen. And then you invite some family and community input. Once you've had some input from families and communities, then you can choose the top 2 or the top 3 using consensus and working out what most people are happy with, what most people are happy to support. But it's really important for us to get some family and community input because it again relates to the National Quality Standards for Early Childhood, in particular Standard 6. The behaviour expectations are going to inform your behaviour teaching curriculum. So allowing your families the opportunity to put input in here to what behaviour expectations they think are important is an opportunity for families to contribute to curriculum decision making. So we really recommend that you do it because it'll be great for buy-in, but also really great for demonstrating how you're exceeding Quality Standard 6. Number of different ways to invite parent contribution. This service has put a poster up with the different behaviour expectations and asked parents to put stickers next to the ones that they like the best. That's one way of getting parent contribution. I'd like you to have a discussion now about what are some of the ways you could get families to have a voice in defining the behaviour expectations for your service. I've given you a poster in your handout that you can use if you want to, but I'm certain that you'll be able to come up with lots more creative and interesting ways to get family voice and community voice in what your family and community would like your behaviour expectations to be. It's really worth investing the time in getting these behaviour expectations right, because they will inform everything else that you do from here on. So spend a bit of time having that discussion now.